Hi, this is Scott Garibay. Let's talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Let's talk about living up to stated intended principles and how hard it is. All right, so let's get into this. So I have put forward a principle, and I believe in this principle wholeheartedly. I am pursuing Garibay Path peak Dungeons & Dragons, right? I have this idea in my head. I'm like, hey, I want my game to add new players. I want those players to be diverse. I want my game. I want myself to be improving as when we drop in and we start a campaign. I want the double-sided mirror to reflect back at me and force me to improve myself, right? I want to listen to the game when the game's on, and I want to listen to Dungeons & Dragons when Dungeons & Dragons is off, when we're not at the table, right? I believe it has powerful lessons to learn. I believe Dungeons & Dragons teaches lessons when the game is on, and I think it teaches more powerful lessons. Dungeons & Dragons teaches more powerful lessons when you're not at the table, right? When the double-sided mirror spins and it's Tuesday, at 10 p.m. 10 a.m. and what are you doing in your life to make to listen to Dungeons & Dragons and be a hero and be a neutral or good aligned adventurer, not an evil aligned venturer, which the game makes difficult or impossible to play, right? And just all these lessons that risk and and lack of courage and overcoming obstacles and completing quests, and right, all these powerful lessons, right? So I put down principles, and one of the principles I've put down is you should get the best dungeon masters and players at your table possible, regardless of if they are your friends. I actually think that friendship is an obstacle to peak path Dungeons and Dragons. And I think that Dungeons and Dragons is absolutely as important and is very much exactly the same, okay, as professional sports, right? And the idea, so if the Dallas Cowboys are like, hey, I don't even know a single player who plays for the Dallas Cowboys, but let's say their name is Jeff Smith. So if Jeff Smith says, hey, I got a buddy who's, he's a really good friend. We go out and we eat hot wings together. Can we get him on the team? No one on the Dallas Cowboys would be like, yeah, let's get your friend who eats hot wings onto the team. That'd be great to include your friend. They're like, no, man. We're playing football. We're playing American gridiron football at the top level, right? We're going to get the best game we can get rocking here, right? Nobody cares about your friend who eats hot wings, right? And they're going to bring in the best players, the best coaches, right? The best physical therapists, right? They're not building a team on friendship, right? And I actually think that the path to straight Dungeons & Dragons is through the best players and the best dungeon masters linking together, right? So why are we talking about this today? Well, I am failing to live up to this principle, and I'm really into transparency, and I just need to tell you guys the truth. So, and the reason why we're talking right now is this literally came up last week, right? So we had an amazing 28 session 5th edition campaign where every single session we handed off the ball to the next dungeon master. It was one of the most challenging campaigns I've ever seen. It really put an immense amount of stress on each dungeon master because you had to pick up NPCs from the last person, and then NPCs and locations and artifacts that you laid down could be destroyed by the time you get back around, right? It was very daunting for a lot of people and caused a lot of strain, and ended up, we were only able to, I'm a big skateboarder, right? Or actually, today I ride bicycles. When I was a kid, I actually, probably up until I was about 30, I rode skateboards quite a bit. And there's always you go downhill, right? And you get this speed and you're just having this amazing run. And then you'd feel this wobble at your feet, right? And when you felt the wobble, you were going to fall. It was one of the weirdest moments, you're like, oh man, there's the wobble. I'm going to crash into that car, right? I'm going to crash into that parked car there, or I'm going to skin off about, 6 inches of skin on my knees now. Oh, well, right? It happened, right? And I could feel the wobble on that 28, session campaign, right? And sure enough, got kicked off the board and all the pieces fell. We picked ourselves back up and bandaged the wounds, and we're rocking and rolling again, right? And the new rocking and rolling campaign is No more handoff from one DM to another. We each get a month. You can run whatever you want in that month. You get 4 2-hour sessions, week. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And so essentially you get 8 hours to do a mini campaign in any tabletop role playing game you want. And also you can like run one and then continue it a month later. So we got into this amazing, like, awesome. I was so happy, right? I was just thrilled because I felt we had the perfect setup, right? So basically, we have 3 players. Everybody is a DM. Everybody's a dungeon master. Everybody, or a game master, because we're running other systems. And everybody's a player, right? So you run when you run, and then you play in everybody else's game. And the other thing is, there's no session zeros or anything. Every dungeon master runs whatever the heck they want, right? And you're expected to behave yourself and be a good, engaged player because, within a month, so you run for 4 weeks, and we have 2 DMs running each Sunday night, and then we switch over, and the other 2 players are now DMing, and so basically there's a cycle, a 2-month cycle. You run for a month, then you get a month off, and in the month off you're running as a player. But even on your night when you're running on the second 2-hour slot, you're also playing as a player, right? So we had this, we had 3 players, and we had 1 DM in each slot, which gave us a 2-month run, right? So I got a month where I can DM and a month where I get off, right? It's perfect, right? Now, there have been talk about bringing in more, right? And I immediately shut that down. I was like, I'd really like to not bring in anybody new. And the reason why is we're set. We get a month on, a month off. If we bring in anybody new, that means I get to Dungeon Master for a month, but then I can't Dungeon Master for 2 months. Right? I don't want that. I love the Dungeon Master, and I don't want to wait more time. Right now it's equal. I get a month where I'm running and a month where I'm off, right? Completely. And I'm just a player in those 2 slots, right? And that's the way I want it. I don't want to push this out to where I'm waiting 3 months. I'm waiting 2 full months to get back into the Dungeon Master seat. I don't want that, right? I said it a little nicer than that. So it dropped, right? But then it came back up because one of my players was like, hey, so this is not their real names. I'm just saying Mark and Greg. So he's like, hey, Mark is talking about wanting to play, all right? And Dungeon Master, right? And so is Greg. Greg is, someone who was in our before, and they're both like, and when the 20, and so when the 28 session game, which Greg had played in, bounced out, we lost these players, right? But now they're hearing everything's square, everything's good again, and they're saying, hey, we'd like to get back in, right? There's some interest, right? Right? And I'm like, oh, man. So this last week, so I thought about it. And so Mark builds Gunplas just like me. It sounds silly. It shouldn't matter that Mark builds Gunplas. But it does matter to me, right? Like, so I love Mark to death. He's great. He's really cool, right? So I really like Gundams. Mark has like 2 shelves that are covered with Gundams. He's built at least 2 or 3 Gundams in my life. I probably built a half a dozen Gundams in my life, right? Maybe close to a dozen, right? But he's helped me, learn the craft, and also he's got this really dry sense of humor. He also doesn't talk a lot, which is weird. Like in today's world, especially among my friends, everybody's, mouth's always flapping. Me number one most of all, right? And but when he doesn't say anything, but when he starts talking, he just goes on this long roll, right? But he's a fantastic dude. I really like him a lot. And Greg is brand new, right? He's a new player. We've only known him about 6 months, but I feel like I'm approaching a point where Greg will be a friend, right? Like where we understand each other and we have built a friendship, right? And I have to say, so at the end of the last, the Sunday night, I was like, bring him in. And, and my other player was like, what do you mean bring him in? You said last time that you don't want to wait. And I'm like, I don't. I really think there's a possibility it's going to make our game worse, right? But I know these people. They're grandfathered. I like them as people, right? And so my desire, it's really weird. I can't even remember his name. He's like the governor of New Jersey, and he said this thing. He's like, it's hard to hate up close, right? Like, and I like, and I have this hardcore exterior where I'm like, D&D's it, man. It's top of the peak. It's top of the pile. Friendship should be it should be pushed down to get to peak D&D, and I believe it. I believe it, right? I'm convinced. Nobody should hire Jeff Smith's friend who likes buffalo wings to play on the Dallas Cowboys, right? I'm positive my principal is right, But literally last week I broke my own principle and said, let's go to 3 weeks. Let's go to a 3-month rotation, right? 6 DMs, right? And I'm going to be DMing 1 month out of 3 rather than 1 month out of 2, right? It's totally against my principle, right? But I really like these dudes. I'm incredibly blessed to have this table. There's so much joy that's generated in my life, based on what's happening at that table each week, and so I'm going against my principles. So the lesson here is, it's hard to live up to principles. It is. It's easy to say them. It's hard to live up to them, right? And also, just full transparency. That's the other thing that I'm bringing here, right? Because if you got the stones to say, do it this way because it's better, you better tell people when you're not doing it, right? Because I think that's what we all hate, right? We all hate that. We all get so frustrated with our government when people are like, you should do X, and then they do Y, and they don't even acknowledge it, right? So I'm acknowledging it. This is one principle I've been telling you that I still 100% believe, but I'm not living it. And I have to be honest with you about that. So that's just giving you a kind of on-the-ground report of what's actually happening at my table. I also just want, we're in that season. I want to say Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.